Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we have a late night insight video on a very rare, hard to find Ensar Oud Oil that has completely blown me away. It is a Malaysian oud and it's called Oud Sultani. So somebody very kindly sent me this little 0.3 gram of Oud Sultani, and I've been wearing it to bed the last couple nights, and I've been absolutely loving it. So you have to forgive me, my voice is a little hoarse tonight. Also, I don't want to wake my daughter, so we're kind of doing this review on the low. So Oud Sultani is one of Ensar's legendary oils, let's call it, okay? It's one of the ones that he says over his 20 or 30 years of doing this really stands out to him. And I completely understand why. It's a very rare, resinous, floral, oud oil from Malaysia, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about Oud Sultani today, but first, a complaint. You guys know that I always like to keep everything on the level with you guys, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And so I have to talk a little bit about trying to find information on some of these Ensars, because I recently did a video on an Ensar fragrance, the pure parfum version of Oud Yusuf, okay? And there was an oil version of Oud Yusuf, I guess that was created over the last 15 years or so. I don't know how long it's been created, but there's an older, just Oud oil version, and there's a pure parfum version, okay? Well, Ensar's website talked a little bit about an Oud Yusuf in a pure parfum bottle from 2019. It said vintage 2019. And if you actually go look up Oud Yusuf, you can see kind of what's on his website. And it says vintage 2019. And one of the things that it says is he says it's one of the most flawless orchestrations in a single origin oud oil he's ever experienced, okay? So I did a review on that. So if you go to Parfumo and actually look up Oud Yusuf in the pure parfum, there's different drop downs and you can select it. It literally just says Thai oud. It doesn't say there's anything else in there. If you go to some of the other Ensar fragrances that are in spray format, there's usually a bunch of other notes listed along with the oud. So I figured it was like an oud soliflor, right? Especially with the way he was talking about it, saying it was a single origin oud oil and this, that, or whatever. Well, kind of like for example, kind of like Russian Adam did with his The History of Oud collection. This is the History of Indian Oud, which I actually have a review on. One of my favorites from this collection. So good, man. That smooth cherry wood. Oh, it's unbelievable. So, but I figured it was like an Oud Soliflor, right? Just in perfumer's alcohol. And Josh from Ensar Fragrances actually left a comment on the video saying that there are other notes in there to help accentuate the oud, that it's not just an Oud Soliflor. And so going to today, I was trying to look up and see if there was a blurb on Oud Sultani that I could talk to you a little bit about the oud itself. But whenever I look it up on the Ensar website, there's actually nothing about the oud itself. There's just blurbs about Oud Sultani Kelantan, which is a spray, perfumer's alcohol spray. And there's Oud Sultani 1975, which is also in a spray bottle, neither of which are just the pure oud oil. And so I don't really want to go through the blurb of something like that because it's not going to be the same as the oil. It's not going to, be worth it. I wish that Ensar would do a better job kind of distinguishing the different versions of his products on his website. I just wish there was a better demarcation of the stuff that he has created. He's an amazing creation. He's like a oud ambassador. The way I think about people like him and Russian Adam and, people like that as like oud ambassadors, right? And I wish he just did a better job, because if I'm confused, I promise you others are confused too. I promise you. If a serious frag head like me who spends hours digging into this stuff is confused, other people are. So, okay, enough about me bitching. Let's talk about this amazing oud oil, Oud Sultani. So Oud Yusuf, I was, it was okay. I appreciated some of the honeydew, melony, floral elements of it, but it wasn't my type of oud. It was a little too clean and floral for me. I like my oud to have a little bit of funk, okay? And this fragrance, Oud Yusuf, is Oud Sultani is much more my speed. So Oud Sultani instantly sort of takes me back to an Ensar video that he did, where he basically talked about the differences in style between the Arabian style of making oud, sort of in that traditional Indian, like I showed the Indian oud, the fermented oud, versus the Japanese Chiara cleaner style of oud, right? So he was saying his masters who taught him in the East, the Japanese oud masters, do not like the animalic ouds. Like if you put some of the animalic ouds on their hand, they'll run for the sink and scrub it off, right? They are not a fan. And so the Japanese, or the Eastern style, if you will, is much more cleaner. It doesn't have that fecal, barnyard, animalic, fermented note. There's really, truly nothing fecal about Indian oud, but that's what people say. They say that it has a fecal type smell. And what makes it smell like that is because it's soaked. So it's actually soaked, and it's the exact same bacteria, the good bacteria when you eat yogurt that we find in our guts and stuff like that. The same bacteria that is used to make kombucha. It gives, actually, if you smell kombucha, it does have a little bit of a fermented Indian oud-like smell. It's just that it's kombucha, it's tea, versus oud being fermented. Depending on what you ferment is going to change the smell, right? And so that animalic fermented note, which I absolutely love, is one style, and it was used because it really had to be almost cut through. Imagine trying to cut through the desert and you're riding a camel or a horse or something like that, right? You need something that just absolutely cuts through everything like a knife. And Indian animalic fermented oud does that, and I absolutely love that smell. It is one of the best things I've ever come across in the perfume industry for me, as far as uncovering and learning about smells goes. But he was asked on one of his videos, or he made a video saying, what would this Arabian style oud, what would it smell like if it was done by an Eastern master? Okay, so what would it smell like if it was done by one of the Japanese Chiara masters, right? And the idea is that it would have a very smooth, suave sort of execution, that the master from the East would take this style and execute it in a way unlike anything we've ever smelled, right? And I don't know if this is the oil that he was referencing when he made that video, but this is the one that jumps to my mind when I smell Oud Sultani, because the opening has a slight amount of barnyard animalics, but in a very restrained way, a very elegant way, a very suave way, right? And enough to satisfy somebody like me who really loves the barnyard animalic side of it, because it's there. I put a swipe on about an hour or maybe 2 hours ago now. I don't know if you can see the remnants of the oud oil on my wrist, but I can tell you that the animalics in here are enough to keep me interested, okay? But done in this very smooth way, extremely smooth. And it's almost like the beginning of the barnyard elements are cut, right? So they start to kind of come to the forefront, and then they're cut, like with a samurai sword. They're just chopped. They don't go any further. Beyond this line, you do not pass, right? Big Lebowski. Beyond this line, you do not pass. And so in the beginning, the barnyard elements are beginning to grow, and they just get cut. And what they're cut with is this very dark, brooding, boozy berry. Okay, so it's almost like taking a smoothie of blackberries and fermented grapes, and this extremely deep, rich purple smell, okay? And while this is, of course, an easy way to kind of describe it, what I really get is a bunch of things. I mean, it's crazy because, like, if I close my eyes and go, coffee, I can smell coffee in Oud Sultani. The depth of this oil is unbelievable. And this is the type of oil that really makes me feel like people who don't like oud, or say they don't like oud, just have not tried an oud that clicks with them yet. Because there's so many different types of oud, and they all have so many different facets, and I could easily see how somebody would sort of fall out of love with some of these designer releases that seem repetitive when they smell something like this. I mean, easy, absolutely easy. This is so much more complex and deep and rich than what you're going to get from a Versace release or, you know, something like that. Even some of the higher end French brands, Dior and stuff like that, that they're doing, you know, some of the stuff that they're doing is just a little bit of a letdown. So when I smell something like this, I completely understand how somebody can just instantly flip and turn into an oud head, right? In their fragrance journey. But imagine smelling coffee like in Kopi Luwak, right? The stuff that goes through the intestines of the civet. Or imagine smelling woods that's like as smooth as smelling the oak barrels of a cognac barrel, or you know, a scotch. Imagine something slightly malty, right? Like if you've ever seen me talk about this fragrance by DS and Durga, Spirit of the Glen. This is one of my favorite boozy fragrances. And I'm going to do a review on this because this is discontinued, but it deserves to have its own review done. This actually was created in conjunction with, I believe it was Glenlivet. Could have been Glenfiddich, but I think it was Glenlivet. Oh, and you know, just imagine taking like these little elements from these different fragrances, right? So imagine taking the tannins from the oak barrel, like a little bit of that malty, boozy, cognac, scotch feel from something like this fragrance. And imagine taking the blueberry or the blackberries, and there could also be blueberries in here, but imagine specifically the blackberries in Jubilation 25, the older bottles of Jubilation 25, and just imagine sort of putting it in a blender and blending these dark, mysterious fruits. Like imagine the rich, decadent plum in something like Rochas Femme, and imagine sort of blending it with this very sticky grapes, not just any grapes, but red grapes, right? You know how sometimes when grapes aren't washed properly, they're sticky, right? Just imagine this very sticky grapes. You throw them in a blender, and you add this agave sweetener. Have you ever seen agave sweetener? It kind of looks like honey. It's supposed to be better for you than using sugar, but this honeyed agave sweetener. And underneath it all, there's this smoky wood. And of course, it's oud, so, but you kind of expect this smoky wood to come forward, but the smoky wood sort of shines through. Imagine like being at a barbecue and like somebody using like these different woods to give meat like this particular flavor, right? And so there's a little bit of this barbecue wood, there's a little bit of this incense wood, there's a little bit of this cleaner wood profile, along with sort of the smoky, incensey woods. I get this very smooth, almost sandalwood note. It's unbelievable how all of these notes can smell in one oud oil, you know, and not a perfume, an oud oil. This I'm pretty sure is a pure oud oil, Oud Sultani. And so just imagine sort of once that animalic, I say that with a grain of salt, animalic top note sort of starts to recede, right? What you're left with is you're left with your brain almost being able to focus more on the oud, on the woody side of the oud. Okay, like the cleaner woods, like I mentioned, the sandalwood. There's almost like this gaiac wood smokiness to it. There's like this unbelievable milky smooth woodiness to it as well, and it's just jaw-dropping. All of the different aspects of this oil are just absolutely jaw-dropping, and the more you focus on it, the more you realize just how beautiful this oil is. And then the coup de grace, right? So all of the things I mentioned are true. Probably not even enough of the thing. I mean, there's probably even so many more notes in here that you could pick out. And you know, but what comes through is this bouquet of florals, and it's not like the florals that were done in Oud Yusuf. The florals here are almost like Bride of Frankenstein florals, is the way I think of them. Almost just like dripping wet with sex appeal, but you know, imagine like Halloween florals, like, you know, maybe flowers that are dried and kept in a bouquet, like a dry bouquet. Imagine like the Bride of of Frankenstein holding a bouquet of flowers in like a Halloween photo shoot, right? That's kind of what I think about. You could probably pick aspects of many, many different flowers. You could probably go through and say there's elements of jasmine, there's elements of rose, there's elements of lotus, there's elements of frangipani, there's elements of osmanthus. There's just all of these different florals, but they come across almost like a bouquet to my nose. And it's like a dripping, decadent, almost like the flowers are kind of melting, like the color of the flower is just melting in my mind. You know what I mean? There's that slightly psychedelic aspect to smelling this. And I mean, the fact that this beautiful floral smell can come from an oud oil like this is unbelievable. I mean, it literally is almost unfathomable that you can pick out so many different aspects. You know, the green aspect, the spicy aspect, the honeyed aspect, the florals aspect, that the lemony sort of petally aspect of some of the flowers in here, but mostly this almost black, you know, runny. How do you even describe this? It's almost like you're that blender I was talking about earlier, where the samurai sword cuts the barnyard opening, right? Just slices it clean and it doesn't go any further, and then the dark fruits start to make an appearance, almost like dark decadent fruits is kind of what decaying fruits. Okay, imagine decaying flowers, decaying fruits. And you know, mix it with this beautiful floral aspect. And just imagine in that blender I mentioned earlier with the blackberries and the blueberries and the blackcurrant and all of the different, you know, fruits that you decided to put in there, and the agave juice, right? Agave honey looking sweetener. Imagine just mixing in some of the florals in there. And it all blends with that dark blueberry, blackberry, red grape sticky, right? That's the feeling of Oud Sultani. And all in the background, it never goes away throughout most of the entire wear, you know, and this oud lasts on my skin. I'll be able to smell it in the morning, right? It's 11 o'clock at night, I'll be able to smell it in the morning. And all throughout the background, in the background, there is that absolute smooth, resinous, slightly barnyard, woody, animalic oud. Slightly, but so smooth. That's why I say that it's absolutely brilliant, addictive. It feels like it was done by one of the Eastern masters who doesn't like the barnyard element, but he was forced to work with this type of oud. This is one of those ouds that I would be happy to own 10 grams of this. Seriously, I would be happy to own 10 grams of Oud Sultani. I really fell in love with Oud Sultani these last couple days. Now, obviously, I can't own 10 grams of Oud Sultani. I mean, I would love to, but my fragrance budget has been drastically cut. So I will have to just say thank you. I think it was Hari who sent me this. So thank you, Hari, for sending me Oud Sultani. I love doing these videos. I love getting to know these. You know, there's a million oils and it's impossible to know them all. But this one's special. You know I give Ensar a hard time for value for money not necessarily being worth it all the time, but this one is a special one. So definitely I would take Oud Sultani over Oud Yusuf. And there's still many other Ensars I'd love to smell. I've never smelled Oud Extraordinaire or any of those other ones. I've never smelled Oud Mustafa. I think that's the one, the Indian Oud. Oud Mustafa is his take on an animalic Indian Oud. I need to smell that. So, yes, a very rare Malaysian oud in Oud Sultani. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you have ever smelled Oud Sultani, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about, you know, if you are familiar with Ensar's work, kind of the way he advertises some of his work on his website. And, you know, I would love to know what you think about sort of the person who collects a million just Western style fragrances and then comes across oud like this and just, you know, completely becomes an oud head. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all that. Thanks for watching the late night insight video. Do leave a comment. Appreciate everyone's support. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.